in movie making.
So how did it
Gene
come down?
Kranz told us 4 years ago that bothered him more than anything else in that whole.
Is that right?
project.
Yeah. So I can only imagine that what really went on is everybody pulled together and said, let's go.
Tom Kelly was up at MIT in a program that advanced management. He got the call in the middle of the night. He ran to the airport, got a private flight back from it. He's walking across the parking lot, Plant 5, and he sees all these people, just as early morning hours, and they're all walking toward the building. He said, what's going on? They had all got the word. They came from home, they didn't care if they got paid, they just wanted to be part of supporting that. And I'll tell you, they worked so hard in support. And I was in the background of that. I was a gopher, but I was certainly part of it and knew what was going on. And nobody worked harder. And when they came back and you saw those parachutes open, I saw 100 men crying. And it was a really very emotional time. And I was so proud that we did that.
All of these things, the way that looks, is really designed for the environment it has to work in.
One comment I want to say is that the Grumman engineers went from that to the F-14. They wanted to get even with a beautiful airplane. That's a good boilerplate.
Nice. Well, look, we've got a couple of really great videos to finish this segment.
After it has been restored from the negative. And we'll run the short 3-minute clip of that. And what you're actually seeing now is the moment where Buzz had the Hasselblad still camera on his chest, and he brings it back to Neil. Neil's now coming into the frame. And that sort of yellow tinge to the suit is a reflection off the mylar on the lens. And Buzz is just off frame at the bottom right now.
So you're about to see the creation of a very famous photograph that has not been seen.
If you look very closely, you can actually see Buzz as sort of a black line moving across Neil's visor. And the color is actually good enough that you can see the stars and stripes on the backpacks and their arms. Now here's Buzz coming in, handing Neil the still camera, which is a moment that nobody quite knew exactly when that happened, but this is it. And Neil then takes it, bolts it back to the bracket on his chest. Buzz goes off and reports his suit system readings back to mission control. And in a second, Neil will do the same. Neil's now prepping the camera, presumably changing the f-stop focus, making sure it's wound on.
So I'll bring out Joe Engel first. Joe Henry, would you join me on the stage? Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Stephen.
So, a little bit about Joe that you might not know. Joe Henry Engel flew F-100s. Joe, go ahead and grab a seat there if you would.
Okay.
Comfortable. And next I'd like to invite Mike Collins to the stage. Thank you, Joe. A man who needs a little introduction, but you know, there's a few things I'd like to say about Mike as we get started.
Well, my first flight at Test Ops was an area orientation, you know, where you take the new guy out and you say, okay, here's the end of our area. This is our restricted area. You got to stay inside here. If you're carrying ordnance, you can't go here and there. That kind of thing. And here, these are the dry lake beds. And always remember which way it is back home. And I remember I was scheduled, Mike was going to give me my area orientation in an F-104D, the two-seater. And you stop shaking your head because you don't know what's coming up here. So
I was pretending I couldn't hear you.
And I didn't. I believe everything but the pretend on that one. And so I was really scared because I didn't know Mike then, and he was just as ferocious looking then as he is now. And so I wanted to be ready for this flight and make a good impression so that Mike would come back and tell all the big guys in flight test, Engel's okay, you can let him go fly. So, man, I studied up on the area. I didn't want to get lost or anything up there if I did get to touch the stick. And so we were ready to go out. I had maps made up, and I had a knee board that I had a special clip on it that I could go back and forth to get different areas on. I think I'm ready. So we walked out to the airplane, and I got in, and it took Mike no time at all. Of course, as soon as we got in, he was ready to crank, and I was still fumbling to try to figure out where the seatbelt was. And we took off, and I thought, well, now I can kind of look around and listen carefully to Mike. And he said, "You want to fly, Joe Henry?" And I said, "Sure." You know, I didn't want to turn down the flight time. So I was getting my stuff out of the way so the stick wouldn't get in the way. And this knee board that I had taken the maps, I pushed it over and it wouldn't go anywhere good. So I unstrapped it and laid it on the side console so that I could make an impression on this old head who was giving me my checkout. And I didn't notice it, but the bottom of the clipboard was a little bit different than what I was used to, and I had to kind of shove it to get it to stay over there on the side console. Well, the jettison buttons for the tip tanks were over there. Oh, no. and I was trying to position that damn knee board, and the left tip tank blew off. And we had just crossed over.
You're gonna have to repeat that one. That was worth repeating.
Well, you'll see in this interview, Mike is a real he loves a good joke, and he's a real straight ace guy. I mean, he can't fool you with where his attention is. In fact, I have no idea what he's thinking about now. But the tank blew off, and Mike didn't say anything, and I thought, God, I wonder if I'd get away with it. I wonder if I could should I blow the other tank off so maybe another tank. I mean, anybody could notice a 104 with one tip tank on it, but if it's got two tip tanks, you know, how do you know? And so I said, "Hey, Mike, did you hear that thump?" And Mike is up there saying, he just turned the airplane over to me, so he's probably already asleep. He didn't. He said, "What thump?" And I said, "Well, I think I may have just blown a tip tank off." And he said, "Oh, really? Well, seems to be flying okay. Let's press on with the checkout." And boy, bless his heart, that's why Mike is such a good friend of mine. I'm still trying to be his friend, but that's why he's a good friend of mine. Is because, you know, he covered for me. I don't know what you told the guys back at Ops.
No, it sounds like the flight from hell. I was innocent. I thought you had a bottle underneath the knee board, and the rest of the story, you kind of lost me there.
I was wondering.